Tayo Olowolagba sat by the large window of his Ikoyi mansion, staring at the sprawling city lights of Lagos. Everything he had ever dreamed of lay before him: wealth, power, influence. Yet he had never felt more empty. Every woman he met was drawn to his billions, not his heart. They saw only his bank account, not the man longing for real love. His mother, Iwaya Tayo Olowolagba, a successful fashion mogul, had tried to comfort him. His father, Chief Olowolagba, was less sympathetic. "Marry Chief Falana's daughter," his father often barked. "Secure our family's political future." But Tayo couldn't give his heart to someone he didn't love. One sleepless night, Tayo made a decision. He would disappear, leave behind the Rolls Royces, the lavish banquets, the shallow smiles. He would travel to a place where no one knew his name, his face, or his fortune. There, perhaps, he could find someone who loved him for the man he truly was. With only a tattered buba, a worn cap, and an old wheelchair, Tayo left Lagos for Ikonla, a small coastal village in Ondo State. It was a place untouched by the chaos of the city, where life moved with the tide and hearts were still tender. On his first day in Ikonla, Tayo wheeled himself to the entrance of Erekasan Market, stretching out a hand, whispering, "Please, help me." The villagers bustled past, some giving him a brief glance, others ignoring him completely. For the first time in his life, Tayo felt invisible, and it pierced him deeper than he expected. Days passed. He sat beneath the swaying palms, dust swirling around him, the salty scent of the Atlantic filling his lungs. Hunger gnawed at his belly, but pride kept him quiet. He was determined to see this through. Then on the fourth day, she appeared. Amoke. She moved through the market with a basket of smoked fish balanced on her head, her simple Ankara wrapper fluttering in the breeze. Her smile was soft, her eyes kind, the kind of eyes that saw people, not appearances. Amoke noticed him immediately. She paused, her heart tightening at the sight of the weary man in the wheelchair. While others hurried by, she crossed the road to him. Kneeling, she peered into his eyes. "Brother, are you all right?" she asked gently. Tayo swallowed hard, caught off guard by her kindness. "I'm getting by," he murmured. Without hesitation, Amoke dipped into her small purse, pulling out a few crumpled Naira notes. "It's not much," she said, pressing the money into his hand, "but it's what I have." Tayo stared at the money, his heart aching. He had spent millions on champagne and jewelry he didn't need. Yet here was a girl with so little, giving freely. It wasn't the money, it was the heart behind it. "Thank you," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. Amoke smiled. "Where do you sleep?" Tayo hesitated, shaking his head. "My father, he might not like it, but no one deserves to sleep on the street," she said. "Wait here." She disappeared into the market crowd, leaving Tayo stunned by her offer. That evening, Amoke returned with her father, Baba Ajani, an old fisherman with lines etched deep into his weather-worn face. His eyes, however, were warm, carrying the wisdom of the tides. Baba Ajani looked Tayo up and down, his gaze sharp but not unkind. "Young man," he said, voice rough like the sea, "no one should be left to the mercy of the night." Without another word, he nodded toward his daughter. "Bring him." And just like that, Tayo found himself wheeling toward a humble clay house with a thatched roof, led by a girl with a heart bigger than the ocean. As he crossed the doorway, Tayo felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not pity, not admiration. Home. He didn't know it yet, but that simple act of kindness would change everything. The clay walls of Baba Ajani's house welcomed Tayo with a warmth no mansion could replicate. It was small, one living room, 2 bedrooms, and a modest kitchen with a wood fire stove. Yet it was clean, fragrant with the scent of smoked fish and soap, and full of the kind of peace Tayo had long forgotten. Baba Ajani cleared a space in the sitting room and spread a woven mat on the floor. "This will do for now," he said simply. That night, Amoke prepared a steaming bowl of yam porridge and placed it before Tayo. He hesitated, unused to such simple generosity. She smiled, encouraging him. "Eat, brother," she said. "You'll need strength to heal." As he ate, Amoke and Baba Ajani spoke quietly, sometimes laughing softly. Tayo watched them, envious of their ease with each other, their simple joy. They had so little, yet their lives were rich in ways his billions had never bought. Days turned into weeks. Amoke introduced Tayo to the rhythm of village life, early morning trips to Ericusson Market, tending to the fishing nets, helping Baba Ajani smoke the catch. Though Tayo feigned weakness, refusing to walk, he participated where he could, offering to clean fish, mend nets, and sit in the sun, soaking in the life he was pretending to belong to. In return, Amoke grew fond of him, his gentle spirit, his quiet laughter, the sadness that sometimes clouded his gaze. Tayo listened to her dreams too. She spoke of wanting a better life, not filled with riches, but stability. A small shop to sell her smoked fish and yams, enough money to replace Baba Ajani's aging canoe. Sometimes when Tayo was alone, he'd stare at the sea, guilt gnawing at him. Every kind word from Amoke, every patient smile from Baba Ajani deepened his deception. He wasn't crippled, he wasn't poor, he was lying to the only people who had shown him unconditional kindness. But still, he stayed. One evening, as the sky melded into hues of gold and purple, Baba Ajani sat beside Tayo outside the house. The old man stared out at the endless horizon, his voice low and thoughtful. "You remind me of the sea," Baba Ajani said. Tayo glanced at him. "How so?" "Calm on the surface," he said, tapping his chest. "But there are storms hidden underneath." Tayo's throat tightened. He opened his mouth to speak, to confess everything, but the words tangled with fear. Before he could respond, footsteps approached. It was Kunla. Swaggering into the yard, dressed in fine linen, the glint of expensive jewelry on his wrists, Kunla carried himself like a king. His eyes swept over Tayo in the wheelchair and dismissed him immediately. "Amoke," Kunle called, flashing a practiced smile. "I've returned from Lagos. I brought you this." He held out a shiny handbag, the kind Amoke had once admired in passing at the market stalls. Amoke's smile faded. "Thank you, Kunle, but I can't accept it." Kunal's smile tightened. "Why not? I'm offering you a chance to leave this poverty behind. Come to Lagos with me. I'll give you a better life." Tayo watched silently, fists clenching at Kuni's arrogance. "I'm content here," Amoke replied, voice steady. "My life may be small, but it's honest." Kunal's eyes darkened. "You'd rather waste your life in this village with beggars than be a queen in Lagos?" Amoke said nothing. She turned back toward the house. Kunle glared at Tayo, then scoffed. "No wonder you pity such a cripple." Tayo remained still, though his blood boiled. He had to remind himself of his disguise, a cripple, helpless, silent. When Kunle finally left, muttering curses under his breath, Amoke sat by Tayo. "Don't mind him," she said softly. "Some people think money makes them better than others." Tayo nodded, staring at the stars now emerging in the darkening sky. Amoke followed his gaze. "You don't need riches to be rich," she said. And in that moment, Tayo realized Amoke wasn't just kind. She was wise. He also realized something else, something dangerous. He was falling in love. As the days grew warmer, Tayo and Amoke's bond deepened. She taught him how to weave palm fronds into baskets, how to roast plantains perfectly over the fire. He, in turn, shared stories careful, crafted ones of his past life, tales of hardship and struggle, never hinting at the billionaire he truly was. In the cool evenings, they sat by the shore, where the Atlantic whispered secrets to the sand. Baba Ajani would sometimes join them, his tales rich with old proverbs and the wisdom of tides. But beyond their humble home, jealousy brewed. Sade, Amoke's childhood friend, watched their growing closeness with sharp eyes. Sade had once dreamed of leaving Ikonla, of glittering city lights and designer dresses. She had pinned her hopes on Kunle, the wealthy suitor from Lagos. But Kunle's attention, once hers to boast of, was now locked on Amoke. One afternoon, Sade cornered Amoke at the market, her smile tight and brittle. "You're wasting your time with that cripple," Sade sneered, Kunle could give you the life you dream of, not this pity charity. Amoke's face hardened. Not every dream is bought with gold, Sade. You're a fool, Sade spat. You think you'll find happiness with a man who can't even stand on his own 2 feet? Amoke didn't reply. She simply walked away, her heart heavy, her mind whirling. That night, Tayo sat outside, lost in thought. Baba Ajani came and settled beside him, the moonlight casting long shadows. You care for my daughter, Baba said after a long silence. Tayo looked down, ashamed. I see it in your eyes, the old man continued, voice calm but firm. But love built on lies is like a house built on sand. It will not stand. Tayo's breath caught. Did Baba Ajani know? Could he see through the mask? Tayo started, but the words stuck. Baba Ajani patted his shoulder. Secrets are heavy loads, my son. Carry them too long, and they will break your back. Tayo sat in silence long after Baba Ajani had gone inside. His heart twisted with guilt. He thought about confessing, telling Amoke and her father everything. But fear gripped him. What if they hated him? What if they saw him as just another liar from the city? Meanwhile, Kunle, stung by Amoke's repeated rejections, found an ally in Sat. Late one evening, by the glow of a kerosene lamp in a small tavern near the market, they plotted. You want her to fall? Kunle said, swirling his drink. We'll give her a shove. Sade leaned in, her voice low. How? Kunle smirked. We'll expose her crippled lover for what he really is. But what is he? Sade asked, suspicion in her tone. Kunle shrugged. I don't know, but I'll find out. Everyone has a secret. They clinked glasses, sealing their poisonous pact. Back at home, Amoke and Tayo sat in comfortable silence, the night air cool against their skin. Why do you seem sad sometimes? Amoke asked, breaking the stillness. Tayo hesitated, then said, Because I'm afraid of losing something I never thought I could find. Amoke smiled gently, then hold on to it, with all your heart. Tayo wanted to more than anything, but he knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came crashing down. And when it did, he feared he would lose not just Amoke's love, but her trust, the rarest treasure he had ever found. The days turned heavier, not with rain, but with tension. Kunle, driven by jealousy and wounded pride, dug into Tayo's past. It wasn't easy, Tayo had been careful, but Lagos was a city where secrets didn't stay buried for long. One phone call to a friend in Ikoyi, one picture confirmed it. The crippled beggar in Ikonla was none other than Tayo Olowolagba, billionaire tech genius. Kunle's lips curled into a triumphant grin. He knew now how to shatter the illusion that Tayo had so carefully built. Meanwhile, Sade, desperate to regain the attention she had lost, fed the village rumors. She whispered into willing ears at the market stalls, at the stream in the tiny churchyard after Sunday service. Amoke is wasting her life, she'd say. A rich suitor offered her everything, but she chooses a beggar. Some shook their heads, others laughed in disbelief, but all began to watch Amoke more closely. And then came the day of the Ikonla Fish Festival, the village's grandest event. Brightly colored canopies lined the shore. The scent of roasted fish and palm wine floated in the air. Drummers beat rhythms that made the sand dance under their feet. It was a day of joy, but also a day when secrets could not stay hidden. Kunle arrived, not in his usual flashy linen, but in a simple shirt and trousers, blending into the crowd. In his hand, he clutched a folded printed photo. Tayo stepping out of a black SUV in Lagos, dressed in a designer suit, smiling with Chief Falana at a business summit. At the height of the festivities, when the chief of the village rose to give his blessing, Kunle struck. Before we celebrate, he called out, raising his voice above the drums, let's not forget there's a stranger among us. The music stopped, heads turned. Kunle strode forward, waving the photo. This man, you pity this beggar, he's no cripple. He's no poor man, he's Tayo Olowolagba, billionaire from Lagos. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Amoke turned, her heart pounding, her gaze locking onto Tayo's. Tell them, Kunle sneered. Tell them how you lied to this whole village to her. Tayo opened his mouth, but no words came. The weight of every falsehood he had spun crushed his chest. Amoke stepped back, confusion and hurt flashing across her face. Is it true? She whispered, so soft he barely heard her. Tayo tried to reach for her, but she flinched. I wanted to know if someone could love me for me, he said, voice trembling. Not my money. Not my name, the villagers murmured, scandalized. But you lied, Amoke said, her voice breaking. You lied to us, to me. Baba Ajani stood silently, his face grave, the betrayal cutting deeper because he had opened his home, his heart. Tayo wanted to explain, to fall on his knees and beg for forgiveness. But no words could erase the pain he saw in their eyes. Amoke turned away, her hands trembling. I have nothing to say to you, she said, her voice firm, despite the tears brimming in her eyes. The drums remained silent. The laughter of the festival died. Tayo stood alone, under the harsh gaze of the villagers, his disguise stripped away, his heart heavier than it had ever been. He had come to Ikonla seeking love, but all he found now was shame. The aftermath of the festival hung over Ikonla like a storm cloud. Tayo sat alone in the small room Baba Ajani had given him, the walls that once felt warm now pressing in on him like a cage. Outside, he could hear the whispers, villagers passing by, voices laced with disappointment and betrayal. Inside the house, silence reigned. Baba Ajani sat by the hearth, staring into the dying embers. Amoke moved quietly, her face a mask, her heart in turmoil. Every time her eyes landed on Tayo, she had to look away. He had been a lie. Their laughter, their shared dreams, all built on falsehood. Tayo tried to speak once to explain himself, but Amoke raised a hand. Not now, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The next morning, Tayo wheeled himself to the front porch. Baba Ajani joined him, not with anger, but with something heavier sadness. You asked for trust, the old man said, staring out at the sea. You received it, and you broke it. Tayo bowed his head. I didn't mean to hurt you. Baba Ajani nodded slowly. Intentions matter little after the wound is made. Tayo swallowed hard. I want to make it right. You can't buy trust back, Tayo. Not with money, not with words, only with actions. The next day, Tayo packed his few belongings. Before he left, he placed a leather pouch on the table thick with Naira notes. For the farm, for repairs, for the future, he said, his voice low. Baba Ajani didn't touch it. He simply looked at Tayo and said, We gave to you without knowing who you were. You must give without expecting forgiveness. Tayo nodded and wheeled himself out of the house. He passed by the market, the villagers staring openly now. He passed by the shores where children once waved at him, and he passed by Amoke, who stood by the water, her arms crossed, her heart aching. He paused a moment, wanting to say something, anything, but the look on her face, not anger, but disappointment, held him still. With a heavy heart, he turned and left Ikonla. In the days that followed, life at Baba Ajani's house shifted into a painful new normal. Amoke threw herself into work, harder than before. She rose before dawn, went to the market, cleaned fish, tended to the small garden. She didn't speak of Tayo, but his absence clung to the walls of the house like a lingering scent. Baba Ajani watched his daughter with quiet worry. He knew her heart was broken, even if she wouldn't say it. But wounds, like the ocean, healed slowly. Meanwhile, back in Lagos, Tayo returned to a world of luxury and loneliness. He was greeted by the cold, vast halls of the Olowolagba mansion. His mother embraced him tightly, grateful for his safe return. His father, however, was less sentimental. You've had your fun, Chief Olowolagba said, his tone sharp. Now it's time to do your duty. Marry Chief Falana's daughter. Secure the family's legacy. Tayo said nothing. That night, as he sat alone on the veranda overlooking the manicured gardens, Tayo realized he had left the only place that ever truly felt like home. and he had left behind the only people who loved back in Lagos. Tayo's life became a blur of empty meetings and hollow conversations. His father grew impatient. Preparations for the election were in full swing, and Chief Olowolagba's political ambitions consumed him. Every discussion ended with the same command: marry Chief Falana's daughter, seal the alliance. But Tayo's heart remained in Ikonla with Amoka, with Baba Ajani, with the simple life he had tried to touch. One night, after another tense dinner, Tayo stood before his parents. "I won't marry for politics," he said, voice calm but unyielding. His father's face darkened. "You think this is about you? This is about legacy, about power." Tayo shook his head. "I won't trade my happiness for your ambition." "You will," Chief Olowolagba said coldly, "or you'll regret it." In Ikonla, life trudged on. Amoke continued to work hard, but her heart wasn't in it. She missed Tayo more than she dared admit, but pride held her silent. Her dreams, the small shop, the repaired canoe for her father, seemed farther away now than ever before. Sade, seeing Amoke's sadness, relished her victory, but fate wasn't done with Sade. Kunla, bitter that his plans had backfired, decided to turn on his old ally. He revealed to the village that Sade had conspired to expose Tayo, not for Amoke's good, but for her own gain. The villagers, already whispering about Sade's ambitions, turned cold toward her. Markets where she once sold goods became empty. Her family, ashamed, distanced themselves. Sade found herself isolated, her dreams of Lagos wealth crumbling into dust. Meanwhile, Chief Olowolagba, furious at Tayo's defiance, hatched a dark plan. If Tayo wouldn't obey willingly, he would bend him by force. Late one night, he sent men to Ikonla, to Baba Ajani's home. They struck swiftly. Amoka returned from the market to find the house ransacked, and her father lying on the floor, bruised and barely breathing. Panic tore through her as she cried for help. Neighbors rushed Baba Ajani to Oluwafemi General Hospital in the nearest town. The doctors worked frantically, but Baba's condition was serious internal bleeding, broken ribs. He needed care fast and expensive. Amoke sat by his bedside holding his frail hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Stay with me, Papa," she whispered. "Please." When Tayo heard the news, a frantic call from one of the village boys who had seen the attackers, he didn't hesitate. He left Lagos immediately. Standing by Baba Ajani's hospital bed, Tayo's heart shattered. This was his fault. His love for Amoke, his defiance of his father, it had led to this. Amoke sat silently. When she saw Tayo, she didn't speak. Grief had drained her of words. Tayo fell to his knees beside her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "This should never have happened." Amoke looked at him then, eyes red, voice hollow. "Sorry won't fix him." Tayo reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document, the deed to a house, the title to a new fishing boat, a business grant, everything he could offer to rebuild what had been destroyed. But Amoke didn't reach for it. "Money can't heal everything, Tayo," she said. He bowed his head, ashamed. "I love you, Amoke," he said brokenly. "Not because you pitied me, not because you saw me as poor, but because you saw me, and I can't lose you." Amoke swallowed hard. Part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her still ached with betrayal. At that moment, the doctor came in. Baba Ajani was stable but weak. It would be a long road to recovery. Tayo made a decision that night. If love meant anything, it meant sacrifice. And he was ready for the first time in his life to give up everything. To him, not for his wealth, but for his heart. The hospital room buzzed with the low hum of machines. Baba Ajani slept, his breathing shallow but steady. Tayo sat by Amoke, silent. He could feel the distance between them, a distance carved by lies, betrayal, and now violence. Yet in her silence, he also saw strength, the same strength that first drew him to her. He couldn't lose her, not again. Back in Lagos, Chief Olowolagba waited. When he heard that Tayo had defied him, yet again, running off to that fishing village, his rage boiled over. "I'll bring him back," he barked at his men, "by force if necessary." But Tayo was done being a pawn. The next morning, Tayo returned to Lagos, but not to bow. He went straight to the Olowolagba mansion, his mind clear. His father sat in the grand study, sipping whiskey, the walls lined with portraits of past generations, men who had built legacies on wealth and control. "You've embarrassed this family enough," Chief Olowolagba barked as Tayo entered. "You will marry Chief Falana's daughter, or what?" Tayo's voice cut through the room like a blade. His father stood, towering, furious. "You think love will save you? Love is weakness. Power is what matters." Tayo stepped forward, steady. "You tried to destroy the only people who ever loved me without asking for anything in return." Tayo said, "You nearly killed a man who welcomed me into his home? And you still think you can control me?" Chief Olowolagba laughed bitterly. "You're nothing without me." Tayo reached into his jacket, pulled out a sleek black pistol, one he had hidden away for years. The room froze. He placed it slowly on the desk between them. "I don't want to be you," Tayo said, voice low but firm. "If Baba Ajani had died, you would have died too." His father's face paled. For the first time, Tayo saw fear in the man's eyes, not fear of death, but fear of losing control. "You raised me to be ruthless," Tayo continued, "but you forgot to raise me to be human." Chief Olowolagba said nothing. The weight of Tayo's words filled the room heavier than any threat. "I'm leaving," Tayo said. "I'm building my own life. And if you ever try to hurt Amoke or her father again, you'll find out how serious I am." Tayo turned and walked away, leaving the gun on the desk, leaving the mansion, leaving the shadow of the man who had tried to own him. The wedding was simple, just as Amoke wanted. Under the wide-open sky of Ikonla, with the sea murmuring behind them, and the scent of salt and fresh blossoms filling the air, Tayo and Amoke exchanged vows. No grand reception halls or golden chandeliers, just family, friends, and the blessing of the village that had watched their love story unfold. Baba Ajani, recovered but walking with a cane, stood proudly by Amoke's side. His smile that day was brighter than the sun. When Tayo slipped the plain gold band onto Amoke's finger, he did so not as a billionaire hiding in a wheelchair, but as a man who had finally learned the weight of truth, sacrifice, and love. Life settled into a new rhythm. Tayo didn't return to Lagos, except when absolutely necessary. He invested in the village, opening a fish processing business that created jobs for the youth, funding a new market, building a library in honor of Amoke's late mother. Amoke continued to work, refusing to let wealth change the simplicity that made her who she was. Together they lived a life not of extravagance, but of purpose. When Amoke discovered she was pregnant months later, the village celebrated with drumming, dancing, and the smell of jollof rice and grilled fish wafting through the air. Tayo held her hand through it all, his heart fuller than it had ever been. Far away, in the harsh edges of Lagos life, Sade's fate unfolded differently. After her betrayal was exposed, she became an outcast. Desperate to escape the shame, she fell into the arms of a man who promised her wealth and luxury. A roadside mechanic, posing as a businessman, he wooed her with sweet lies the same way she had once whispered deceit into Amoke's ears. By the time she realized the truth, it was too late. Pregnant and abandoned, Sade found herself living in a shack by the sawmill district, the same streets she had once looked down upon. One hot afternoon, as Sade sat by the roadside eating a stale piece of bread, destiny crossed her path. Destiny. Amoke. Her belly rounded with pregnancy, her face glowing with quiet peace. Amoke was passing by on her way to the clinic. Their eyes met. Shame flooded Sade's face. She quickly looked away, expecting scorn, expecting Amoke to laugh at her downfall. But Amoke didn't. Instead, she walked over, knelt beside her old friend, and placed a small, folded envelope into her hand. Sade opened it. Slowly, it was a check, enough to start a small business or find a better home. Sade's lips trembled. Tears filled her eyes. "Why?" she whispered. Amoke smiled gently. "Because someone once showed me kindness when I had nothing. It's my turn." No more words were spoken. Amoke stood, patted Sadie's shoulder, and walked away. Sadie sat there for a long time, the check trembling in her hands, a gift she didn't deserve, but desperately needed. As months passed, the village of Ikonla blossomed. Children ran through the new schoolyards. Fishermen brought in larger catches thanks to new boats. And the small market thrived with color and life. At the heart of it all stood Tayo and Amoke, a living testament that true wealth wasn't found in gold or land or political power. It was found in kindness, in love, in the courage to forgive. Back in Ikonla, Tayo returned to the hospital. He found Amoke sitting by her father's bed, her hand resting on Baba Ajani's frail fingers. Without a word, Tayo sat down beside her. "I'm not going back to Lagos," he said quietly. "I've left it all behind." Amoke turned to him, searching his face. "You'd give up everything?" "I already have," Tayo said, his eyes steady. "What's money if it costs me you?" Amoke's eyes welled with tears. She wanted to believe him, but scars don't heal overnight. "Trust is earned," she said softly. "I'll earn it," Tayo promised. He took her hand carefully, humbly. And this time she didn't pull away. In the months that followed, Tayo stayed true to his word. He used his resources not for himself, but for the village, rebuilding the school, funding the clinic, repairing fishing boats. Quietly, humbly, without fanfare. He worked beside Baba Ajani when he was well enough, mended nets with the fishermen, learned to gut fish at the market. Slowly the villagers' hearts thawed. Slowly Amoke's heart healed. And one golden morning, by the shore where they first truly saw each other, Tayo knelt no disguise, no lies, and asked Amoke to marry him. This time she said yes, not because of what he had, but because of who he had become.